What's up, everybody? Ron Harris here. Welcome to the Ron Harris YouTube channel. If you're not already a member, subscribe. Please subscribe. If you like these videos, like them, share them on your social media platforms, leave some comments, do all that good stuff. Topic today is something that's been discussed for a long time, and I think I'm going to have a different take on it than you think I will, because I am 54 years old. I am one of those cranky old men who grew up watching Pumping Iron, lived through the Dorian Yates era, the Lee Haney era before that, Ronnie Coleman, these guys who are known for crazy, intense training. And you'll hear a lot of the older guys, my age, roughly, saying these bodybuilders today, they don't train like that. Nobody trains hard anymore. They're just, they rely all on gear. They're not like the old school guys. The old school guys train much harder. So I want to see if I can bring up some clips here. So during the
Listen to form again. Everyone with it now. Tight master, let's see it. Ooh, let's go now. That's it. Ooh, good. Ooh, again. Yeah. That's it. That's the way.
Okay. Let's look at one more from Dorian before we talk about Ronnie. These are two guys we talk about from the 90s and the early 2000s that we talk about as training way harder than the current guys.
Yeah, Lloyd. And join. That's the way. Join me up. Good. Good. That's good. Join me up. Let's go. Let's kick. Join again. Come on now. Let's kick in. Finish it? Yeah.
So, as you see, Dorian trained very, very hard. He took all his sets to complete failure. Couldn't have pushed the weight another millimeter despite his greatest efforts. That is intensity. Training hard. What is training hard? That's really what it boils down to, is your intensity. How hard are you trying? So if you could do 405 for 10 reps and you only do 5 reps, well, you're not really training that hard, because you could have done 5 more. So we talk about Dorian. And the other guy that we talk about as being one of the hardest training bodybuilders of all time, and I'm not disagreeing with that, Ronnie Coleman. So these are the two most famous.
Yeah, baby. Ah! Come on, baby. Let's go! Oh, come on. Yeah. Let's go! Yeah! Let's go, baby! Yeah! Come on. Lock in.
Yeah. 2 reps. It was 2 reps, right? Didn't do anything to build muscle. I mean, not that he needed to, but that's a stunt lift. He was purely doing that for the video, to challenge himself, just to see if he could do it. 800 is a huge number. Boy, wouldn't we all love to deadlift 800 and squat 800? And of course, I can't end it without the... It wasn't really light. We know that. So, yeah, 2 of the hardest training guys. And, of course, you go back further, you hear about Tom Platz was obviously a very, very hard trainer. There's videos of him squatting where, I think he did 500 for 23 continuous reps. There's that one video. You couldn't believe that he still had more reps in him, but he kept going and going. Rich Gaspari, a guy I looked up to a lot in my early years, was known as a very, very hard trainer. People said that's how he beat everybody that he beat. He never beat Lee Haney, but he beat everybody else. Based on his training, his work ethic, and how hard he trained. They say that all about Dorian too, and Ronnie. They beat people because they trained harder than them. And is that really why they beat them? I'm not saying it was a drug thing or purely a genetics thing, but everything comes together. Certainly their hard training had quite a bit to do with it. So I want to get into a couple more modern champions to show you that these guys train damn hard too. It's not like they're just, shooting up a bunch of gear and doing some light cable stuff or some little 4-pound dumbbells. No, these guys are strong. So first we're going to look at is the 2022 Mr. Olympia champion, looking to win the Arnold Classic in a few weeks here. This is Hadi. He could have easily used a machine. If he was relying purely on gear and genetics, he could just use machines. Wouldn't even have to go that heavy, put some weight on there and get a good pump, and he'd probably be good. I don't think he wouldn't have that same quality, that fibrotic, real dense look to his muscels that he did if he didn't train that hard. Let's see. We got one more. This is Derek. I want to show you Derek. Derek Lunsford is the current and reigning Mr. Olympia. Just had a baby. Congratulations. Beautiful baby girl, him and his wife. Here he is just doing leg extensions. Single joint movement. The one you wouldn't think of as being super intense, but
Come on. 5.
Yeah. Oh, that feels great, man.
So get another one. I just got a few because I really want to give these guys credit. This is Sean Clarita, he is, I should say, a 2-time 212 Olympia champion. Lost his title to Keon Pearson a couple months back, but he is trained to get that back. But here he is. He's known as a very hard and heavy trainer, mostly free weights, uses a lot of free weights, some machines. Here he is on a leg press.
Fuck. I just died.
Okay, and the last one I'm going to show you is another guy who is definitely a very hard trainer out of the UK. He is the Shed, James Hollingshead, and this guy is super strong and puts out incredible effort in the gym. He is also training for the Arnold Classic coming up. Yeah, I trained legs at Metroflex once back in 2005. It's pretty scary with those upright stands like that because, you don't have any safety pins or anything there. If you fail on that, I guess your only option would be to dump the bar on the ground in back of you, or else you'd be crushed like a bug. I'll go to live chat. How do I do that? Comments. Okay. So when people talk about the old school guys training harder, one thing that they point to is that they trained more often and longer. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say that he trained 3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Now, work ethic is admirable. Don't get me wrong, but there is no way he was training intensely for 4 hours every day. His central nervous system would have been shot. He would have died. I don't know if he would have died, but you get the point. You can't train at 100% intensity for hours and hours. That's why guys like Dorian's workouts typically went 45 minutes maximum, never more than an hour. I believe he was always under an hour, even with legs or back, something like that, because he limited his volume. He didn't do a whole lot of exercises, different exercises for body part. Mike Menser, the same thing, short, intense workouts. So we have more volume approach guys like Arnold and Lee Haney. Now, they trained very, very hard. Don't get me wrong. But to say that they trained harder just because they trained more frequently or longer, that's like saying, I work harder than you because I work 80 hours a week and you only work 40 hours a week. That just means you work longer. It doesn't mean you work harder. Certainly some people could put in more effort in 20 hours of work a week than others would put out in 80 if you're just lounging around the office or something. Another thing that people point to as far as how hard people train is strength, how strong you are. These guys were very, very strong, Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman. Therefore, they trained harder than guys who weren't as strong. Now, I know I used some examples from the modern era where guys were training very heavy, and I only use that as an example that they were pushing themselves. That's just the weight that they are capable of. They're training to the limits of their own capabilities. So if James Hollingshead can squat 600 pounds for 10 reps, and that takes every ounce of effort to do it, another guy can only squat 400 pounds for 10 reps, and it takes him the same amount of effort, and he's putting out everything and can't budge that weight anymore. They're training equally hard. One just happens to be much stronger than the other. It doesn't mean that the guy who's stronger is training harder. That's a myth. You know, I was privileged to train with many, many pros over the years. A couple dozen here and there. A lot of top amateurs, and a lot of them were very strong. It's stronger than me. Jose Raymond, great example. I was never as strong as Jose on, almost anything. The only thing that I could sort of rival him on strength-wise was legs. He blew me away on chest training, the weights by far, even at my strongest. Shoulders, arms, everything. He was just much, much stronger. But my attitude with him and with any pro or anybody that I trained with was, they're not going to train harder than me. They might be stronger, but I'm going to train just as hard. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to push to my limits. I'm going to go to failure and beyond. And I always did. And I took pride in that because I knew my genetics weren't at their level. I was maybe a little bit more genetically gifted than the average person, but not by much. Compared to these guys, we're almost another species. They were meant to do this. They were meant to look like that. Final thing before I get into some of your questions is Mike Cox brought this up today. He said, today's bodybuilders use a lot more machines. They're allergic to squats, deadlifts, and bench presses. They rely on a lot of machines. We do see a lot more machine training these days, even among guys who are young and healthy and should have no issues at all with their joints. There's no reason that they can't squat, can't bench press, can't do barbell rows, whatever the case may be. There's no reason for them to use the machine versions of those. They should be using the free weights. However, let me say this. We talk about these guys from old school era, like Arnold. Well, Arnold didn't use machines. Well, there weren't any machines back then. They were just starting to come out. Even when he retired, when he retired for the first time, I should say, in 1975, it was very hard to find decent machines in gym. It was still mostly free weights everywhere you went. Had all these things been available to the guys over the course of history, I'm sure they would have used more machines. Some of these machines are great. There are back machines from various companies like Panada, Hammer Strength, Arsenal, Cybex, Icarian. There's leg machines. There are a lot of machines that actually hit the muscle in a different way than you'd be capable of with a free weight. So I don't frown upon machine training. I do believe people should use a mix of both. I don't believe that using all machines or all free weights is the best way to go for anybody, unless you're all banged up like me. And I still use free weights. I still use barbells and dumbbells for certain things. But to say that guys today rely more on machines, it's because they're there and they're good machines. I don't know any great bodybuilders at the pro level who use all machines. They all use a mix. Even Dorian himself. Dorian used hammer strength machines for several movements in every gym. He squatted on a Smith machine. He did leg presses, hack squats. He used the hammer strength row. There's a rowing machine from Hammer Strength called the DY row that they actually, when he was under contract to them, they named after him. So he used a mix of machines. Ronnie used almost all free weights, but that's what worked for him. You did see him do leg presses. He didn't use a lot of machines and cables at all. It was a lot of barbells and dumbbells, but those are harder to use. So in one aspect, if somebody works very hard on free weight basics and another person uses only machines, you can start to make the argument that they don't train as hard. Now let's get to some of your stuff here. Jacked Up says, Ron, I usually do no less than 12 reps of drop set, about half the weight. Yeah, I don't believe that doing very few reps is the best thing for building muscle. I mean, I was guilty of it in my youth when I was super strong and my joints were nice and healthy. I loved to test my limits back then. I did a lot of 4 to 6 rep range sets, a lot. I won't lie. And I did that just because I could. It was out of pure ego and for the challenge, the thrill of it. And, in my heart of hearts, of course, do I have regrets about it? You can't look back and regret. Would my joints probably be in much better shape now had I not done so much of that? Yeah, they probably would be. But even Ronnie Coleman, if you watch his videos, Ronnie did 10 to 12 reps. Usually 12 was his magic number. He did some stunt lifting for his videos. But if you watch most of the videos and count the reps, 200-pound dumbbells. That's a lot of weight, but Ronnie was doing those for sets of 12. You know, the average person couldn't roll a 200-pound dumbbell across the floor. Ronnie was incredibly powerful human being. Jacked up. Oh, so man, Hollingshead is strong. James is very, very strong. Very, very strong guy. Brown Dog, BT9 Rolly, you're posting content on your own channel. Thank you. I'm watching from London, where it is 10:16 p.m., I believe. So thanks for staying up. Manny, Super Manny. Hey, Ron, I made it. Yeah, Super Manny on Instagram, right? Thanks for joining us. Sky Davenport. So I think Casey Vader trained like Larry Wheels. I think genetics is probably the greatest fact. 99% of people can't train that hard. See here, this is where we get into that question. Are people training harder because they're super strong? Again, so Larry Wheels, obviously strength is a genetic thing. Not everyone has the capability of getting to that level of strength of a Larry Wheels. In fact, very, very few people do, I would say. So the fact that he is so strong, does that mean he trains harder than, you know, the rest of us who are nowhere near that strong? No, it just means he's stronger. You know, we could all train, try to get as strong as we can, and we would get much stronger than we were originally. But if you're going to be an elite level strongman, power lifter, Olympic lifter, you have to have something special in you that's going to allow you to reach that crazy, almost superhuman level of strength. Just like, let's look at another sport, for example. Let's say pro basketball. There are a lot of guys out there who are tall enough. A lot of people say, well, these guys were meant to be pro basketball players because they're 6'7" or 6'10" or something. Well, there's a ton of guys out there who are that tall and don't have that natural athletic ability, that hand-eye coordination, that agility, that vertical leap. I mean, things that are a genetic component. People who are great athletes in any sport, they were meant to be great athletes. They were designed from inside the womb. Another example is, who's that great diver? Who's the guy? Not diver, swimmer. Greatest swimmer of all time. I can't think of his name. Oh, dummy. But he's built like a seal. What the hell's his name? The guy who's a great swimmer. Somebody help me out. He has a super long torso, super long arms, and short legs, like a seal. And seals are great swimmers. Phelps. Yes, thank you. So Michael Phelps, right? Yeah. So is he the best swimmer on earth just because he practiced harder and he worked harder than everyone else on earth? He did. I'm sure he worked very hard. He practiced very hard. He had great coaching and all that good stuff. But a huge component of why he's that good of a swimmer, why he's that moves through the water so fast, is because of that unique structure that he has. It's built for moving fast through a body of water. Whereas, you know, the average person could do everything he did. They wouldn't swim half as fast. It doesn't mean, you know, they're not trying and they're not training as hard, practicing as hard. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who work just as hard as Michael. You know, Usain Bolt, super fast runner. I know, I'm sure there's people who might be faster than him now, but, you know, there's something about him that made him that fast. Just like there's something about these guys like Dorian, Ronnie, Branch, that made them stronger. It doesn't mean they train harder. So did these guys in the past really train harder? I don't think so, because everyone thinks, yeah, I've talked to so many people who say nobody trains harder than me, or I've heard people say I train harder than anybody else. And of course I raise my eyebrow at that. Like, really, you train harder than everybody else? How do you quantify that? How do you know you train harder than everyone else out there? Like, how do we know that Dorian really trained harder than everyone else? I assume he did. But, you know, to say that guys like Kevin Levrone didn't train hard, Sean Ray didn't train hard, Nasser didn't train hard. I saw all those guys train at one time or another, and they all trained very hard. And Dorian did have an edge. He was mentally very, very strong. Didn't cheat on his diet. He was like a machine all those years. He was Mr. Olympia. But to put it into perspective, you can only train so hard, no matter who you are. There's only so much training. There's only so far past failure you can get, regardless. If you're pushing the weight, you can't get it, and now you've reached positive failure, right? There's another thing. There's called negative failure. Now somebody can help you lift the weight. You can lower the weight a little bit more on your own power, very slow. Get a couple more like that, and at some point the weight's going to come crushing down. And no matter how hard, you're not going to be able to budget, and you won't even be able to lower it anymore. You're just done. It's just going to come flying down. That's as hard as you can go. If you've done that, and I don't recommend you do that on every damn set, guys, your central nervous system will crash and burn on you pretty quickly. If you train with super, super high intensity on like every set of every workout, you're not going to last long. You will burn out very, very quickly. But if you do that, you can't train any harder than that. You've exhausted every last possible fiber of muscle, every last ounce of energy and effort. It's gone. So there's only so hard a human being can train. Some people do train a lot harder than others. And granted, I think we're getting it confused because when we say that the guys say they don't train as hard, we're including everybody. And there's so many more people that train now. The gyms are packed full of people. And a lot of them are there just to sort of socialize and to film content. And no, they don't train that hard. They don't take things to failure. They don't look any different from month to month or year to year. They're just creating content and they're there to have a good time and to get attention and this and that. So I don't really want to include all those people in this discussion because they didn't exist back in the day. You know, years and years ago, people went to gyms. They were serious about getting in shape, about getting bigger and stronger, especially if it was like a bodybuilding gym. If it was like a real hardcore bodybuilding gym, everyone in there was very serious about their training. You know, I happen to go to a gym, Bayshore Athletic Club in Braintree, Massachusetts, where the majority of people there do train very hard. Squat racks. We have like 10 squat racks on a Saturday or Sunday morning. It's hard to get one. They're all being used by people squatting. There's a deadlift platform. There's usually people waiting to use that. Very, very strong people there. Very, very serious trainers who do train hard. Then you do have some people creating content, but whatever. What are you going to do? So Manny says, I think back in the day, there were less distractions. Bodybuilders could just train in peace. Now he's too many distractions. I don't feel these kids can put in the same quality work. Yeah, because, you know, back in the day, social media is a very new thing. I mean, to me, it's a very, very new thing. To some of the younger people who have sort of spent more than half their lives on social media already, it's not a new thing. It's you know, as far as they're concerned, this is normal. Social media, posting everything on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. They don't use Facebook, the young kids. So for them, it makes perfect sense that you would post everything. You would film, set up your tripod, film all your PRs, take pictures of all your meals and post it. Whereas back in the day, you did all that without anybody looking. You know, what is it? Success is done when nobody's looking. It's doing the hard work when only you are accountable. There's no one there to cheer for you or to tell you, you suck, you didn't do it. So these kids, they do need that constant attention and validation. So I don't really include them because we're talking about bodybuilders here. We're talking about the champions, the people at the elite level. And I think all these guys at the elite level, for the most part, they do train very hard. I've seen Derek Lunsford train in real life. He trains very hard. I've seen a lot of these guys train. And of course, we've seen all of them on their videos, on their Instagram and on their YouTube channels. And I think it's not fair that a lot of the guys of my generation put them down and, you know, unjustly say that they don't train as hard. They do train as hard. Are there more drugs? There's more drugs, yeah. But, you know, like I said, if these guys in the old days had access to all the drugs and everything that today's guys, they would have used them too. It's just because they didn't have them. They didn't have all the machines. They didn't have as many different PEDs to choose from. You don't think they would have been using growth hormone and insulin and tren and all that in the 70s if it was around? Of course they would. Every athlete's always looking for an edge over the other guy. Bettiona, thank you. Betty from Spain, I believe you are, and a veteran of the Muscular Development Forums. So glad you're here on this channel, Betty. Maybe the difference is now we don't see exclusive videos, DVDs, guys, like in the past. So even if some train hard and heavy, the training nowadays isn't the same status and importance. Unfortunately, it's not worth a look than training all year round. Yeah, you know, we were seeing the Ronnie videos are a really great example. So there was no social media back then. The magazines had photo shoots in them that were typically done like the day or two after a competition. Some of them were done like a week before, but they were staged for the most part. You didn't get to see people training in like real time, real life, anything like that. The videos were all we had. So most of them were done by Mitsuru Okabe, great guy from Japan. Used to do all those Road to the Olympias. He would stay with these people for a week, typically while they were in prep and looking really lean. And he would follow them around, you know, film them eating, film all their workouts. They knew he was only going to be there that week. So even if they were tired or whatever, they would rally and they would train really, really hard with that camera on them. So we were really seeing highlight reels. We weren't seeing, you know, like Ronnie. Ronnie didn't squat 800 pounds every week. He only did it once in his career. He didn't deadlift 800 pounds all the time. He did it once, and there was a camera on it. And it's immortalized, and it's a clip that we can draw inspiration from all these years later. But he didn't train like that all the time. He trained hard and heavy all the time. But a lot of what we see in these videos from him and other people was purely because there was a camera in their face, and it was the only time they would have a chance to have it documented. They didn't have nowadays, you know, their tripod, they can put their phone, they can tape every damn set every day if they want to. A lot of them have personal videographers that meet them at the gym, if not every workout, you know, a couple workouts every week to film content for the YouTube channels. So we were seeing the very, very best that these guys had to offer. We never saw the days where maybe they weren't as strong or maybe they weren't feeling like doing the basics that day, and they did use more machines. We didn't see any of that. See, our Stav says many guys with great leg development claim to have a running background. I'm curious, does that help with vascular nerve development plus the intensity in the gym? I mean, not many. There's not many guys with a running background. Most of the people with athletic backgrounds in bodybuilding, at least the Americans, come from football. They played football. Some of them did run track. I think running track probably helps you more so with, especially if you're in the shorter events, the sprints. That definitely helps with the muscle density and so forth. It helps with the hamstring development a lot. If you've ever seen Olympic level sprinters, the hamstring development on them is typically better than the average bodybuilder. You'd have to see like a top heavyweight or super heavyweight in most cases, bodybuilder or a pro, to have superior leg development, a hamstring development than what you see on a lot of these sprinters. No, I mean, I'm sure it helps, but I don't think there's a lot of guys who came from track. What are your thoughts on Hani Rambod? I honestly think he's overhyped. Overhyped in what aspect? He has more Olympia wins than anybody else. I think it's 23, 24. He's guided more athletes to Olympia titles than anybody else. He's very meticulous in his approach. I've known Hani I've known Hani about 15 years now, and I don't think he's overhyped. I think he's the best. And, you know, that's no disrespect to Chad or Milos or Matt Jansen or any top coaches. There's a lot of great coaches out there. I do think Hani is the best. I mean, if you look at the track record, yeah, they'll say, well, he only works with the best, with the elite. Well, if you're at the top of your field, why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't, if you're managing, you know, music band, pop, you know, if you're a manager with musicians and you're the best, wouldn't you manage the top acts in the world instead of, you know, people who play like local bars? I think he's damn near genius in what he does. I mean, he's well versed in training, nutrition, supplementation, PEDs, motivation, and he's very selective about who he works with. So elaborate, please, about and someone else noted he takes people that are already special. Well, all these great coaches do. These coaches, they take on people that are already pros. If you're a pro bodybuilder, and I mean a pro that's capable of doing something in the open ranks, you're in the genetic elite anyway. You're already one of the best. So any coach could take somebody like that, and, you know, if you make them any better than they already are, wow, you're a freaking miracle worker. I mean, I name one coach who has taken somebody who was a terrible pro with genetics that weren't near the level of the other people and turn them into like a Mr. Olympia champion. No, it's never been done. You can't take a person with average genetics or even slightly above average genetics and have them beating, you know, like people like a Bumstead or a Lunsford, Sampson, these people with elite, outstanding, exceptional genetics. So all coaches they all work with elite genetics. Scotty Davenport, Bertil Fox apparently trained really hard. Well, he was very, very strong. And, you know, he pushed. Again, here we go with that argument. The people who are stronger, do they train harder than the people who aren't as strong? Here's an example of that. Say Bertil could do, let's say he could do 500-pound bench for 10 reps. I'm just making that up. Let's say he could do that. But let's say he only uses 405 and he does 10 reps. He's not training hard because he's not training as hard as he could. He's not putting out the effort because those 10 reps with the 400 pounds are going to be fairly easy to him if he could do 500 for 10. If somebody else can only do 315 for 10, but it takes every last ounce of effort to get that 315 up there for the 10th rep, and they can't do anymore, he's training harder than Bertil if he's only using 400 pounds. I hope that makes sense. How many movements do I do for a body part like back or chest? Yeah, there's no hard and fast rules. I don't look at it in terms of how many different movements. I'm trying to cover different angles. So chest, you don't need a lot. You need something, either a flat or a decline press. You need some kind of an incline press. and you need some kind of a fly movement. That's really 3. A lot of us will throw in like a 4th movement, another, maybe we'll do another flat press or machine press or something, but you just want to cover all angles for a body part. With the back, you need a little bit more. The back's a little more complex. You want something for the upper back, like width, and that'll be some kind of a vertical pull, like a pull down, where you want to keep your torso very straight up and down. You don't want to lean back because now you're doing like a row. So some sort of vertical pull, which could be chin-ups, could be a pull down. Then for rows, I do believe you need 2 different kinds of rows to really maximize. I would do something with a closer grip. When you do a closer grip for back, you're actually going to be working more the outer back. I know this doesn't make sense, but you'll feel it. If you try it, you're going to feel it more on the outside. Now, if you go outside, so the inside is going to work the outer back, the inside grip. When you bring out a grip like this, let's say you're doing a barbell row or a seated row with a machine, something like that with a wider grip, an overhand grip, it doesn't really matter, but it's the width. Now you're going to gain more of that mid back, which is where a lot of people lack thickness, that middle of the back area. You'll see people with thickness on the outside of their lats, thick traps, and there's like a gap in the middle. And, to some extent, that describes my back development. My mid back has never been as thick as my traps, especially, and my outer lats are pretty thick. But in the inside part, I've been struggling for years trying to get that as thick as everything else. So I would do 2 different types of rows. Then for the lower back, you want to do something. You could do hyperextensions. You could do good mornings. If you're deadlifting, that certainly covers your lower back. But it really depends on the body part. Like for biceps, I rarely these days do more than two movements. The biceps are a very simple muscle group. Most of the time now, because I do pull day, I do back, rear delts, and biceps all in one day. By the time I get to biceps, they're already pretty pumped and warm. I usually just do something like maybe barbell curls with an easy bar, and then like maybe a preacher curl machine or something like that, or incline dumbbell curl. 2 movements is really all I do for that. Let's get back to some questions. I think I missed some questions here. Scotty, Tom Platz is known for training insane like Will Dinwiddie. I've never heard of Will Dinwiddie. Yeah, but I mean, again, he did train very hard. But to say that he built the legs that he built because he trained legs harder than anybody else in the world ever trained legs, I don't know about that. There are probably guys you've never heard of, guys that didn't build their legs anywhere near that level, that train their legs just as hard as Tom. I believe there's 8 billion people on this planet. Let's say there's a couple 100 million of them that are serious weight trainers around the whole world at any given moment. To say that nobody trained as hard as Tom Platz, I don't buy that. And it's not taking away anything from Tom. It's just saying that I don't think hard training is exclusive to only a very rare handful of people. I think there's plenty of people out there who train very, very hard as the others. They're just not going to get the same results. I have this discussion with people with great genetics, bodybuilders. Well, obviously all the top champions have great genetics. And a lot of them think that they look that way because they trained harder than everybody else. And I've seen some of them train and they didn't train that hard. They didn't take things to failure. They did use machines when they could have been using free weights. I could see that they didn't put out 100% effort, at least when I watched them train. But they get the results. They look better than everyone else. If 10 people train equally hard as they possibly can, and one of them has elite genetics, he's going to look way bigger and better than the other 9. That's just the way it is. It's not because the other 9 people didn't train as hard. They weren't as dedicated, as focused and intense. It's just they didn't have that extra bit of genetic component that would allow their muscles to grow to these crazy extremes. Let's see. Keep on going. Let's keep it going. It's me I'm doing back tonight. T-Bar, good. Endorphin. Did you ever train in a fasted state? I did briefly. I would never recommend weight training on a fasted state because, you'll still have some glycogen left in your system from carbs that you ate the day before. But, a lot of that that's why we wake up hungry, because we're depleted. Our bodies have burned up and utilized everything that was in our system while we slept. So why would you go? The argument used to be training in a fasted state was beneficial because it boosted your growth hormone. Because there were studies that showed a spike in growth hormone, natural growth hormone release when you exercise in a fasted state. So here's another one of those things that looks good on paper, but in real life, it falls apart very, very quickly into shambles. Just because you get that little bit of spike, okay, that's one good thing. you're weaker, you're tired, you're not going to be training as hard, you're not going to be putting out as much effort because you can't. You don't have the fuel in your body. You're running on fumes. Muscle contractions, you need glycogen. So even if you're not having carbs, that's why people have keto, their bodies make ketone bodies. There's still fuel in the system. Food. I would never recommend doing weights on a fasted state. Even cardio, I talked about this in the last video. Even cardio, there have been numerous studies now that debunked the common belief that I had and that I propagated to many people for many years, that fasted cardio burnt more body fat. It's been proven now in many studies. Dr. Lane Norton has pointed this out many times on his channel, and his Instagram, his YouTube channel, that in the end, it's all the same, calories in, calories out. You'll burn the same amount of body fat in the long run, whether you do your cardio on an empty stomach or if you've had a meal a couple hours before. Doesn't matter. So a lot of us were waking up early in the morning. I used to wake up at like 4 in the morning, do my cardio after just like a cup of coffee. You know, I was miserable, but I was like, oh, I got to get ripped. This is the only way I'm going to get shredded. And then the last couple shows I did, I decided to see what would happen because I had plenty of time to mess with it. I did like a 20-week prep from the time I started prep to the time the second show was over. And I found I did all my cardio after weight training. If I did it on off days, I would still have breakfast and then go to the gym and do my cardio. I got just as lean as I ever had. It did turn out to make no difference at all when I did my cardio, fasted or non-fasted. So, but weight training, I tried it for a little while years and years ago, and the workouts were miserable. I went back to eating a meal or two before the workout, and boom, my workouts are great, and I started getting better results again. Favorite movements for shoulder day. So, number one, I love the seated dumbbell press. I was very strong, which I only point out now because it's those days are long gone. Shoulders both need to be replaced. Guys don't need to tell me about any crazy stretches or peptides or anything like that. The joints are destroyed. There's nothing in there. There's nothing that can be helped. It's like telling a guy who lost his legs, you should try this and then you'll get your legs back. No, the legs aren't coming back. They're gone. So, okay. Seated dumbbell press, that was my go-to. I did that first while I was fresh and strong. Very best I ever did was like 130s for a few reps, but any day of the week for many years, I could do 120s for a good 12 reps. I have a video somewhere on this channel where I did it for 14 continuous reps. That was by far my favorite. I used to love the one-arm shoulder. So when I did lateral raises with dumbbells, my preferred method, and I stole this from, I think the first person I ever saw it was Mike Francois, who won the Arnold Classic in 1995. So there were one-arm raises. I would brace my hand on something, and I would lean a little bit away from the working side. So I'm standing, and I was coming up like this with the one dumbbell. And because I was leaning away, I got a little more stretch at the bottom. And then I would go to the other side. I would always lean away from the working side. And then I would get that stretch at the bottom. I like machine laterals, but the one-arm dumbbell was by far my favorite. I used to go very heavy, too heavy at times. I think I used to go to like 70 or 80 pounds, which was ridiculous. Looking back, I probably didn't need to go that heavy, but I was strong and I was jacked and I remember the pumps I would get in my shoulders from when I was in my earlier years of gear would be so extreme that I would have to stop because I literally couldn't lift my arms. I have to wait a few minutes for the pump to go down to keep doing the workout. I used to love cable laterals for that. Those gave me a pump in the delts, especially those early years of gear, like nothing. My delts would blow up like balloons from cable lateral raises because you get that good stretch at the bottom. They could really squeeze out that contraction at the top. I love cable laterals. Another one that I did for many, many years was upright rows with usually an easy curl bar. You could use a straight bar, but upright rows, wide grip, a little wider than the shoulder, and I would pull sort of like this. So not straight up and down, but sort of up and over the shoulders. I was able to really isolate. I still can really get a good pump and feel in the side delts for those. Rear delts, I used to do the same thing, one arm. I used to bend over on the dumbbell rack, put one arm on the dumbbells, and do one arm reps. And those I could go heavy. I used to go like hundreds on those. Ridiculous. Nowadays, I do them face down on incline bench with 2 arms at a time. But I'd say those were my favorite movements for shoulder day. Seated dumbbell press, one arm dumbbell lateral raise, leaning away from the working arm to get that stretch at the bottom, cable laterals, and upright rows. Those were golden. I built my shoulders were a really good body part for many years, and I credit those movements. I did do a good amount of front presses with a barbell, but to be honest with you guys, like I have videos on this channel where I was doing a 315, but I was arching so much. I was like this. It really was like a high incline press. It wasn't a true military press where my torso was straight. So, do I take pre-workout powders? I don't. I just try to sleep well. I do. I've been using pre-workouts since that product category came along. I don't know how long have we had pre-workouts now, about 20 years. So before that, I remember in the 90s, I used to do just instant coffee on the way to the gym. Then when ephedrine came around, which was soon after that, I would pop like an ephedrine tab before I left work. I worked in the office of TV production. I would pop that, and then I would make my instant coffee with the Folgers, and it was very thick, very thick. I'd put like 2 big tablespoons of instant coffee after I microwave the water, and man, my teeth would be like stained brown. But anyway, right now I use Euphoric by Muscle Tech. That is my go-to. I sleep well, but I have come to rely on pre-workouts for that energy and that boost and that focus. And on the rare occasions that I don't use a pre-workout, I do feel the difference. You know, like when I travel, like I was in Florida for the holidays down in Miami. Well, first Orlando, then Miami. And I wasn't using pre-workouts. I went to the gym a few times. I still trained hard, but I noticed I can train a little harder because I have a little more energy with the pre-workout. So I use Euphoric by Muscle Tech. They have the Boogeyman Punch is the signature flavor that Blessing Awodibu came out with. And that's the one I'm using right now. I like the taste of it. But yeah, pre-workout powders, they're not a necessity. And some bodybuilders like Evan Sinapani will say, you know, you shouldn't need, if I need a powder to work to make me want to work out, well, I don't use the pre-workouts. I want to work out regardless, but I want to work out and have a great workout. And to me, there is a difference noticeably between training with and without a pre-workout powder. So I use the pre-workouts. I recommend some oatmeal and banana before working out. I mean, you want to have carbs in your system. So like most of my workouts are done on one meal. I usually have one meal and then walk the dog, answer some emails, and then I'm off to the gym. My breakfast is the same every morning now. It's 2 whole eggs, a half cup of egg whites. There's some vegetable hash from Trader Joe's in there for some veggies. It's got like some peppers and things like that. I do have a little less than a cup of dry oats in water. Into that, I put a scoop of collagen peptides. No, I put that in my coffee. I'm sorry. So in the oatmeal, I put about a half a cup of blueberries. Blueberries, very, very powerful antioxidant. They taste great. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of honey in the oatmeal too. And I have a big mug of coffee. Into that, I put a scoop of collagen peptides we get from Costco. And I also use a little bit of protein shake. I use the Nitrotech whey protein for flavor and as like a creamer because, I'm not putting like milk or anything in there. So that's my breakfast. And then typically about an hour and a half from the time I finish that breakfast, it's about an hour and a half before I'm doing my first set in the gym. That works out perfectly for me. A lot of people say they get better workouts with 2, 3, 4 meals in before they go to the gym. I've tried it both ways. And for me, I don't notice a difference. I really just like to get to the gym early and get it done so I can get back home and, get things taken care of that I need to do. How long did my workouts? Well, I still work out. So they typically last, I'd say about an hour and a half. And that's including the weight training, little cardio and stretching, a little more than an hour and a half, maybe on like leg day. But I do three training days. I've been on this split for 6-7 years now, push, pull, legs. So push day is chest, shoulders with the exclusion of rear delts. So I should say chest, front and side delts and triceps. Pull day is back, the whole back, lats, traps, rear delts. I should say I don't do too much for traps anymore. I work traps maybe once every 6 weeks or something. I find that they get enough stimulation at this point from everything else, and biceps. And then leg day is obviously legs. So that takes me, and then I'll do, unless I'm not running short on time, I need to get somewhere, I'll do like 20, 30 minutes cardio, and then I'll stretch. Because if I don't keep up my mobility just by stretching, mainly my hips and my lower body, my hips, my quads, my hams, glutes, stretching all that. If I didn't do that, I'd be in rough shape walking around. I'd be even more awkward looking than I am. What split do you think worked for you the best? I don't think any particular split worked better for me. It's I did the traditional bro split for many, many years, for probably 25 years or more. So the bro split was, for me, was 4 days a week. I trained on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, which gave me the whole weekend off. I had 3 full days to recover, and I would typically break it down. I would do chest and then either biceps or triceps. And so if I did biceps that day with chest, I wouldn't do back the next day. I would never do back the day after biceps. So if I did chest and triceps, the next day I would do, let's say, back. Then Thursday would be shoulders and triceps, and then legs for the last day. So back and legs always had their own days, but chest and shoulders, I would always do either biceps or triceps with those. That worked very well for me for many years. Those workouts were longer. They were like volume style workouts. It took me about like an hour and a half each time I did those. And in more recent years, I've switched to doing a little bit less for the body parts, but training them more often. With push-pull legs, instead of training a body part every 7th day the way I was all those years, now every body part gets hit twice every 8 days. So it's getting worked every 4th day. I just don't do as much for it. I find for me, at this stage in my career, everything, it feels right for me. And I look forward to the workouts more. Sky Dweller, apologies if you've done this, but have you opened your own gym? Any thoughts on starting a gym? I have not. I looked into it briefly, very briefly in the 90s. My wife and I looked into a World Gym franchise at the time. We never got too far because it's a huge investment, which, any business is going to take a lot of time and effort and, money to start up, of course. I think it's every bodybuilder's dream. It's just sort of a fantasy we all have. Man, I'd love to have my own gym and pick out all the equipment that I wanted. And, we think maybe it'd be private and it would just be for me and my friends. And, if you want to be successful as a gym owner, you need a lot of members. You can't just have a few people. You can't just have your buddies come over and they're all going to want free memberships anyway. No, I never really looked into it. I'm happy training at other people's gyms, and luckily I've trained at gyms where the owners, especially now, Bayshore, the owner, Tim, is a bodybuilder himself. He competed. He's very much in tune with trying to keep new equipment in and making sure everyone has everything they need and the gym's clean and all that stuff. So it's just like they say, the best boat is somebody else's boat. You don't want to have to take care of the boat yourself and pay for it. The best gym is somebody else's gym if they're running a place that's to your standards of equipment and atmosphere and all that good stuff. Blue Magic, Ron, what do you think are some neglected or forgotten exercises you believe are really effective? Okay, I guess we'll go body part by body part. Let's start with chest. I think a lot of people don't do dips for chest anymore. Back in the old days, Arnold, Franco, Lou Ferrigno, Robbie, in the 60s, 70s, I think it started going in the 80s. Dips were a huge part of most bodybuilders' chest days. If you're leaning forward and really engaging, you can see how much the chest contracts. It's like a decline press. I think dips for chest, very much neglected. You could say dumbbell flies, but you know what? I don't like dumbbell flies as much as pec fly machines because you get even resistance from start to finish, which you really don't get with a dumbbell because gravity pulls straight up and down. So you really never get that contraction right here because, as you can see, straight up and down, hard, easy. There's nothing there. You're not really contracting your chest there with dumbbells. But with a cable or a machine, now you are getting that contraction. Back pullovers. I don't think enough people do pullovers anymore. T-bar rows. You don't see a whole lot of those anymore. Chin-ups for sure. Chin-ups were a staple for me for years and years. I used to love chin-ups and then weighted chin-ups. If you can do really good reps and squeeze and contract the upper back with like a 45 or even 2 45s, you're going to have a pretty thick upper back. Lat pull down is not the same. I can't really do chins. My shoulders, they just won't allow it anymore. But man, I love chins. I was good at them, and I think they did a lot for the development of upper back. Shoulders, you see people doing dumbbell presses. You see lateral raises. You see front raises. I'd say like upright rows, either with dumbbells or a barbell. That's an exercise people forgot about. That's very, very effective, productive for the shoulders. Legs, you don't see many people doing front squats. Great exercise. Keeps your torso perfectly vertical, so you can't lean forward too much. Step ups, lunges. You see people doing lunges. Yeah. Let's see what else. Shoulder back, biceps. You don't see people doing hammer curls very often with dumbbells. You don't see people doing spider curls, which is a straight side of a preacher bench, where you can get even more of a stretch. You can get a full stretch at the bottom. Incline curls, lying on an incline bench, where you get that stretch at the bottom. You don't see a lot of those anymore. Triceps, you don't see too many people doing close grip bench presses. I like doing those on a Smith machine. You do see skull crushers. Overhead presses. I think we covered it. Did we cover all the body parts pretty much? I think so. Manny says, love dips. Shoulders can't handle it now. I tried doing, this is embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. Training with my wife about a month ago. I got up on the dip bars, lowered myself very slowly into the position to do a dip, being very careful. And the second I started pushing, something popped in my right shoulder, inside my right shoulder. And it was hurting for a good week after that. I was like, Jesus, I can't even do one dip anymore. I can do dip machines where the movement is much more controlled, but my body, that shoulder can't really support that position anymore with the weight coming this way. How much sleep was I getting when I'm competing? I always strive for 8 hours, but I would say it's hard once you're very lean and you're in the final stages of prep to get as much sleep as you need. Your body is just on turbo mode. Your metabolism is all revved up. You're taking fat burners. If you're an assisted bodybuilder, you're probably taking Clen, T3, things like that. And they do affect your sleep. If you're on Tren, my God, that messes up anybody's sleep. So it is hard to get a good night's sleep toward the final stages of contest prep for most people. I remember lying there. I'd be like wanting to sleep. I'm in bed, but if I'm lying in bed 8 hours back then, maybe I was sleeping for 4 to 5 hours. And the rest of the time, I'm just like praying to fall back asleep. But I always try for 8. 8's like the magic number. Most people do very well on 8 hours of sleep. Some people only need like 6 or 7. As we get older, we don't need as much. But I was always striving for 8 back then. And in the off season, I was certainly getting 8 hours. Southern Comfort, not the whiskey. A slight tweak on my shoulder with shoulder warmers. Do you recommend? Thanks. You want to just warm up as much as possible. Light dumbbell raises to the side, very light. I'm talking like 5 pounds. High reps to the front, to back. Stretch your shoulders. You can do those. I can't even get my arm in the right position. The rotator cuff exercises. I would do light machine presses for a couple of sets of like 20. I would get like a good pump and everything nice and warm in there before I even thought about touching a remotely heavy weight. That's all you can do. But you got to be very careful. If a certain movement, you're feeling that pain, that injury type of pain, do not try to work through the pain. Worst mistake you can make. Every injury that I've ever had, and when I talk to people, they say the same thing. Something didn't feel right, but I kept going. Your body will send you signals. You got to listen, because if you don't listen, you can get messed up. And training injuries suck because you can't do what you want. You want to train. You want to go to the gym and give it your all, and your shoulder's messed up, or your back's messed up, or your knees messed up, and it's a rough feeling. Yeah, dumbbell pullovers, something I heard old schoolers has gone exercise. Yeah, you rarely see those anymore. I was never really a fan, honestly. People did them for chest, but they would do them, on a flat bench and getting a really good stretch. It was more of like a stretch for the rib cage, because really, what were you building there? Now, you can make the argument for back. You can come up with your lats. It's very hard for most people to get in the correct anatomical position and make their lats do the work in a dumbbell pullover, which is why I like to use a cable version, standing cable, or, machine pullovers. Obviously, they take all the guesswork out. You just put your arms in the roller cage, you push down with your elbows, and that's your lats doing all the work. Yeah, but dumbbell pullovers, in fact, One thing the old school guys used to swear by for expanding the rib cage was they would superset 20 rep breathing squats where they would really exaggerate the breathing. I'm not recommending this. I'm just telling you what they used to do. Then they would go over to immediately they'd have a bench there with a dumbbell and they would do pullovers and they would, again, they would exaggerate, taking as much breath as they could and exhale as they came out. And they believed that expanded the rib cage. I have a pretty big rib cage, but I think that's genetics, your ribs. And that larger rib cage would give you a bigger frame to build a big chest on. If you look at guys like Arnold in a side chest, Ronnie Coleman, Lou Ferrigno, Dorian, these guys had big rib cages because that's how their chests sit nice and high like that with the thick upper chests. Let's see, man. He says, I just did V squat machine last night. We never had that before. Yeah, we just got one of those at my gym last year. I think around spring or summertime. Yeah, we never had that before. Yeah, V squat's a good machine. It's with the pads here, and you can either have your back on the pad and do it more like a standing squat machine, or you can face away, and then you're really getting more hips and glutes. I used to do it very, very heavy facing away, mainly because I wanted to be a hero and use all the freaking weight the thing could hold. But yeah, I mean, my glutes were like this big back in the day. Did I ever train twice a day? I heard Christ would love running chest twice, once in the morning and later. And I never did. I never had really the time. I mean, I worked. I had family. I didn't have time. I'll tell you something that's even crazier than that. Hitting chest twice in one day sounds pretty crazy. But Victor Richards, who was the original Nigerian mass monster back in the 80s, he was he was way ahead of his time in terms of freaky size. If he didn't feel he had hit chest or whatever body part well enough that day, he would come back the next day and do it again, which is it's insane. It's like, why would you do that? It sounds like a recipe for disaster. But like, again, he was a genetic freak. He had a chest out to here, freaking 23-inch arms. He was a freak. Vic Richards. They called him Mr. Big. He turned pro. He won the Mr. Nigeria against, three guys who had looked like they never touched a weight, never competed as a pro. What messed up your shoulders? I really think it was just years and years of wear and tear. I've been training for 40 years. And like I said, from, I'd say my 20s and my 30s especially, I did a lot of very heavy stunt lifting, just way too much weight. And I never had periods where I went lighter. I never had light days. Everything was super, super heavy. And again, ego lifting. I was like, well, I just did the 120s. Let me see next time if I can do 140s. And I'd have someone spotting me, and I was struggling, get like a couple shitty reps. It was just so much pounding on my joints. I remember doing dips with weights. 1 plate I could do great. 2 plates was okay. 3 plates, now the form was really going to shit. I was barely moving, but I was putting so much stress and strain on my elbows and my shoulders with all that weight. In fact, I think that's how I tore this tricep years before I fully tore. So I fully tore, you can see the scar. I don't know if you see the scar. It's right there. I fully tore this in the summer of 2011, right after I competed in Team Universe. But when they reattached it a couple weeks, it was a month later. Was it that much later? Anyway, when they reattached it, because this head had torn, the doctor told me, did you realize that you had a torn tricep for years? I said, what? So this head here, the long head, had torn, and it had blunt ends retracted all the way up here, which meant that it had torn years before because the ends weren't like fresh and frayed like something had just torn. This had happened years before. And I think it was stupid shit like that. It's go very heavy on dips, very heavy on like shoulder presses, dumbbell presses for chest. I just think it was, and I didn't warm up a lot at all. Didn't warm up much because I was in a rush to get to heavy weights. I would do very quick warm up and then jump right to heavy weights. I didn't pyramid up. That's another big mistake. I started with the heaviest. I would do a little bit of warm up and then I would go right to my heaviest weight because I had this idea that if I didn't do that immediately, if I did the pyramid system and gradually increased the weight as the sets went on, I'd be weaker. I wouldn't be able to get as much weight on that last set, which is probably true. But it would have been a good thing if I couldn't use as much weight and my body would have been more warmed up. I think it would have been a much safer way to go. So I should have warmed up more. And I don't think I should have started with the heaviest weight. I should have pyramided up, 90s, hundreds, 110s, 120s, instead of starting out with the 120s. That's how dumb I was. But it was ego lifting. You know, people think I'm talking shit about these guys like Sam Sulek. I talk shit because I did it myself when I was young. And, you know, if you've made mistakes, you know, you're not a hypocrite for pointing out these mistakes that people are making. You're trying to keep other people from repeating your mistakes. Sissy squats. Yeah, you don't see that much. We have one. We have a little sissy squat machine in our gym. Yeah, you don't see too many people using it. Double M. I haven't seen a lat puller machine in a commercial gym for a couple of decades. My gym just got one last year. The hammer strength plate loading model. Yeah, you're right though. There's not a lot of them out there. I still I applaud Tim, the owner, for getting that machine. I tried it a few times. I gave it a chance, and I came right back to the cable. I still get a better feel and better contraction using the cable. My wife says probably because your shoulders are so messed up that, you know, you really I can't get that stretch. I can't get that far back in the machine. Whereas when I do the pullover on a cable, I'll actually start leaning forward. So I get that stretch. I'll do like 8 reps like that. Then I'll stand up straight and finish and get that bottom part. So I'm getting that full 180-degree range of motion, but I'm doing it over the course of 2 stages in the same set. Ronnie had a small rib cage unlike Arnold Haney Yates. I don't know if he had a small rib cage. I don't know if I'd say that. Ronnie was a big guy in general. Still is. I mean, his bones. Shoulders are pretty wide. He was never going to be a small guy. I think he was a pure mesomorph, as they say. If you know the 3 somatypes, ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. I think Ronnie was very close to being Endorian, very close to being pure mesomorphs. Lee Haney for sure. Favorite body part to train? It used to be legs. For many, many years, I loved leg training because it was very rewarding. I got great results. My legs grew. You know, I trained my arms as hard or harder than my legs, and they never grew like that. So, of course, you know, I fell into that same trap that most people do is you'll have a body part that responds very easily, and that's the one you love to train. Whereas, you know, we really should be working harder on our weak points, hammer those weak points until they're not weak points anymore. But my legs were a strong point. I love challenging myself, see how heavy I could go, how far past failure I could take, how much pain I could endure. It was like a point of pride. And I used to love training legs with other people because I like to beat them by training harder than them. I would take my sets further. I would put more intensity and effort into my sets than they did theirs. I would go heavier than them. Very, very competitive by nature. So legs were a big favorite of mine. I love that. And my legs blew up. People would compliment, wow, what great legs you have. Of course, you hear that. It makes you want to keep training them, right? So that was it. But nowadays, especially, obviously I tore my quad, but even the last few years, knee issues, that knee, now I realize that tendon was getting weaker and weaker as time went on. It wasn't just a sudden fluke, freak accident. It was years in the making. But I would say back. I love training back now. I'm always trying to get the best contractions. It's a challenge to really feel the contractions exactly where I want to feel them. If I want to hit that lower lat, if I want to work only the upper back, I'm trying to work certain parts of the back. And I'm still strong because, like I said, my shoulders are messed up. I can't press very heavy anymore. Even on machines, I can't press as heavy as I used to at all. But back, I can still go very, very heavy on back, which is psychologically makes me feel good that I'm okay. I can't press for shit anymore, but I can still pull pretty well. Sky Joel, did you ever have an injury that later healed completely and you felt 100% confidence pushing that body part in workouts? Yeah. I mean, the shoulders problems I have now, they started when I was like 19 years old. I was hurting my shoulders, but they always healed very quickly. And I didn't have any fear. As soon as it felt fine again, I didn't have any fear. Now I have fear because I've been hurt so many times and I've had these injuries that took so long to heal, if they ever even really fully healed. But yeah, no, I've had many injuries that healed completely and I was confident. But like right now, after I tore this quad, I know the tendon is attached perfectly and everything. It's strong. It's connected just fine. Everything's okay, but I'm never going to train legs the way I did before. I'm never going to feel confident to do, 5, 6 plates, 7 plates on a hack squat or load up a leg press, or I'm never going to train. And because I don't feel I need to. And I do have that fear because I never want to go through this again, which, I'm still recovering and rehabbing this right quad situation. It's been over 4 months. It's been like 4.5 months at this point. It's not going to be normal. It's not going to be returned to normal size and strength till, I can tell you right now, it's going to take like almost a year from the time of the injury, which that's a long time to take to get back to where you were. So yeah, I do have that fear. I'll be honest about my leg training. We don't care about injuries. We're freaks. That was a Jason Genova quote. Whatever happened to Jason? I don't know what happened to him. I don't hear anything about him anymore. Do I ever go and train at Gold's Gym these days? How often did you ever go there in the 80s? Well, I'm in Boston, so you're talking about Gold's Gym Venice. So I don't get over to LA. It's been years since I was anywhere near there. I went to the Legion Sports Show in Long Beach. Was the closest I came to Venice. Yeah, I haven't been into LA in years, but I didn't go there in the 80s. But I moved to Los Angeles in the LA area in January 91, and I trained at Gold's Venice for the entire year of 1991 and about half of 92. And from that point on, I went to a World Gym that was in Pasadena, closer to where I lived, out in San Gabriel Valley. But I did go there a lot in 91 and 92. And I would return there time and again, especially if we would film there, because I was with that American Muscle TV show. So if I was there filming an athlete, but we went to World Gym to film guys most of the time because they had no music. We didn't have to deal with the crowds and the crazy noise. We couldn't hear the athletes talk. But Gold's back then was awesome. It was, Gary Stridham, Jim Quinn, Mike Quinn. Oh boy. Aaron Baker, Flex Wheeler, Mike Matarazzo, Paul DeMeo, Lee Priest was there a lot. Chris Cormier, Lou Ferrigno was there sometimes. There's a lot of top pros there. It was like walking into a magazine. Did I get a lot of tissue work done? Massage visits? Oh, yeah, of course. Chiropractor. I was going to chiropractor on average twice a month, all the years I competed. Didn't start getting deep tissue work until maybe 2002, which sounds like a long time ago, but considering I only competed until 2013, it was the later stage of my career. I used to get a massage every other week, deep tissue. I haven't gone lately, but I still am a big believer in deep tissue massage for help just breaking up all the scar tissue, improving circulation. I just always felt better and more mobile, and I felt like I got better workouts. Fresh water intake, gallon and a half to 2 gallons a day. Yeah. Genetics determine results. Well, we did similar workouts to Tom Platz, but nowhere near the results. Yeah, Scotty. I mean, that's like I said. I trained my arms as hard or harder than anybody with arms twice my size. Why aren't my arms? It's just genetics. I don't believe I trained the legs harder than everyone. I had better legs than, most of the time when I train at gyms, if I didn't have the best legs there typically was, unless it was like a few pros or something, but I would usually have the best legs in the gym. It didn't mean that I trained legs harder than everybody else. I don't believe that for a minute. I had better leg genetics. So if I trained legs as hard as somebody else with lesser genetic gifts in the leg department, I got bigger legs than they did. Yeah. Joseph Arablo, who just competed a couple months ago. In my prime, I was priding myself on hard. I trained. The hardest thing I ever did was squat 225 for 55. Oof. I look back at the crazy stuff I did in my 20s. I can't believe it. LOL. Yeah, I never did that. I mean, I would give up after. I used to do 225. I did like 315 for 20 many times. 225. I'll tell you, high rep squats, the lactic acid buildup, just you're sucking air. You have to have incredible cardiovascular fitness to pass like 20 reps. Once you're like in that, I've tried. Once I got to like 25, 30 reps, I had to rack it. I couldn't breathe. I literally just could not get enough oxygen into my body. So that's another reason to do cardio. You're never going to be able to do really good high reps on leg day if you don't have good wind, good cardiovascular fitness. So just another reason to incorporate cardio in your training. How heavy to go on a dumbbell incline press? I tried it a couple of days ago. I did 60s, whereas I used to do 120, 130, 140. Most of the time I'll use a Smith machine. Don't go any more than like 245s on a side, maybe throw a quarter on every once in a while if I'm really feeling good. Hammer strength machines, who cares? So I don't go very heavy because I don't have that stability to balance the dumbbells anymore. The strength is still there, which is why I can still go fairly heavy, not as heavy as I used to on machines, but I don't have that stability to balance the weights anymore. So it's not that the strength to press isn't there anymore. It's I can't keep the weight balanced. It's like it's just very unstable inside that joint because the cartilage is gone. There's no cartilage. It's bone grinding on bone in there now. Yeah. Let's see. Thoughts on micro bearings. Well, doesn't that point toward being natural? You don't lose much size. No, I mean, the argument about Michael Hearn's never going to stop. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I don't say for sure he's on steroids. I don't say for sure he's natural. I honestly don't know. And, people say, well, you're calling him a liar? I'm just saying I don't know. People lie. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. But I will say this. Had he been a heavy steroid user all these years, he would have burnt out. He would have had serious health problems. Something would have happened by now because I think he's a little older than me. I'm 54. I think he might. Yeah, I think he turns 55 this month. He's like, 9 months older than me. So nobody's abusing steroids for, he's been doing this since he was like a young teenager. Nobody's abusing steroids for 40 years, high doses, and live to tell the tale. Either you're dead or you have kidney issues, heart issues. Certainly he would have tore something, but the fact that he's still using heavy weights just tells me he's a naturally very strong person. I believe by the time he was like 18, he was bench pressing 500 pounds, deadlifting like 600 or 700 pounds. He was a super strong guy, powerlifting champion, bodybuilding champion. Again, just very, very naturally strong. And he's very dedicated. He's still hitting the weights every damn day. So, you gotta give it up to the guy for his longevity, regardless of whether you believe he's natural or not. He's still putting out 100% effort all the time. But yeah, I mean, but as far as I say, you don't lose much size or strength as you age, as long as you're consistent. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean that he's natural. It just means he's consistent. He could be on low doses of stuff. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. American Muscle TV. Yeah, that was a show. There's not much of it on YouTube, unfortunately. People are like, do you have copies of the episodes? I don't. I was fired from that job like 1998. But if you look up American Muscle ESPN, put it on your search bar on YouTube, you're going to come up with some old episodes. It was an amazing show. Nothing like it ever again. Gary Stride and Lee Priest, they were great. Did I have a good appetite? I did force feed myself. In fact, that's why I got fat in my 20s when I was natural. And I continued getting fat even as I used gear. 30s and 40s. I didn't stop trying to bulk up until I was probably 42, 43, when I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I looked, I'd see these pictures taken in the wintertime, especially around Christmas or New Year's. I'd be like, oh my God, look at my face. Oh, disgusting. I look like a freaking Cabbage Patch Kid with this big fat round cheeks. Yeah, but I spent my 20s eating very, very clean, didn't eat much junk at all, didn't drink alcohol. And I used to force feed myself. I think I used to do like 2 cans of tuna out of the can with like a big baked potato, like this big, like the size of a human heart. Or I'd have a big, big bowl of white rice. And to get it down, because it was so plain, I used to throw raisins in there for some flavor. And I did force feed myself. And I got to 230 pounds, drug-free, but fat. I was fat. I had like dimples on my ass, big chubby cheeks, a little bit of a double chin going. I could grab my love handles like big hunks. But I was 230. That's all that mattered to me. Physiotherapist. I don't. I've never seen a physiotherapist. Never. I'm not sure. It's Packy Rebound, who he's on Instagram. Packy McDonough. I don't know if he's a physiotherapist. He might be, because he does massage, he does cupping, he does Graston. I'm not sure. He might be a physiotherapist. I haven't seen him in a while. I haven't actually seen him since I've only seen him a couple of times since I tore my quad. I met John Meadows many times, never got the chance to train with him. Did steroids cause his death? I don't know what caused his death. He had a pulmonary embolism, I think it was. Somebody can correct me in there, but that's the period. It was 2021 when he passed, I think. We were seeing a lot of guys who had just gotten the vaccine pass away. I don't want to get too much into it because YouTube will rip me off. They'll destroy me. They'll take my channel away. So I can't say anything against the vaccine. Yay, go vaccine, go. But I don't know. Steroids probably didn't. I don't know if they contributed, but they didn't help. There's no safe way to use steroids at the amounts that bodybuilders use. There's safer ways. You can use more moderate doses. You can take all these other drugs and supplements to try to offset the negative impact that steroids will have on your cholesterol, on your heart, on your other organs, your kidneys. But there's no safe way to use steroids. They're not helping any of us. None of us are living longer lives because of steroids. Unless you were hypogonadic, you're a person whose body didn't produce enough testosterone, and you get on TRT to get you to normal levels, which would offset a lot of health problems you can have if you have insufficient testosterone. But abusing steroids, which means taking them in the amounts that bodybuilders take them to get freakishly big and strong, it's not doing us any favors. They're not making any of us live longer, healthier lives. No. There are actually a few people on eBay who sell more or less every episode of Muscle on DVD. Wow. Well, that's odd because when American Muscle was out, DVDs weren't even invented. They must have been transferred. They were on VHS, and he never tried to sell episodes of them. Yeah. I mean, I remember before I worked for the company, I had taped a few of them on VHS and watched them back home in Waltham, Mass. When I was in my first couple of years of college. Yeah, and then my last year of college, I went out there and started interning for them, and that was it. What did I do for cardio? I used to do, if I was in contest prep, I would do 45 minutes once or sometimes twice a day. Elliptical runner was my favorite because I used to love just putting on a fairly low resistance and going very fast with like Slipknot or Linkin Park or whatever in my playing on my Sony Discman. There's still CD players at that time. Toward the end, I would get on the step mill, the Stairmaster, whatever you want to call it, which was very, very difficult machine. I consider that the hardest cardio machine you can use, the step or the step mill with the revolving stairs. But yeah, I was doing like 45 minutes a day, every day except the day after legs. So 6 days a week. And sometimes if I felt I was behind, I wasn't getting lean on schedule to look the way I wanted to on contest day, I would do like 2 40-minute sessions a day, 45-minute sessions. When I diet down, my face, the first thing to come down, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, usually that's the last thing to come down for a lot of people. You'll see their face all, Skeletor face, death face, which we used to call it until people started dropping dead at the rate that they have been. Now it's, it's bad taste to say death face. Yeah. Usually the last place for fat to go on almost every male human being is the glutes, upper hams and the glutes. Yeah. And the lower back, that Christmas tree. So if you have a Christmas tree, if you have striated glutes and your hams are all crispy and you can see every band of the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and biceps femoris all clearly delineated like steel cables back there, you are in shape and your face is all sucked up and hollow cheeks and hollow eye sockets. Yeah, you're in shape. Did I ever train with Charles Glass? I didn't. I saw Charles train people. I watched him train people a few times. But I never got to train with him. That's what I would have liked to, but it's kind of too late. I mean, I would still enjoy it, but it's like my body's all beat up now. It's like, I think COVID itself. Oh, can we say COVID? Is that a bad word? Caused pulmonary illness, lung clot issues. Yeah, guys knew I had leg clot back in June 2020 for the vaccine ability study. I had COVID a few weeks prior. Yeah, I mean, COVID was a devastating illness. Killed 20 million people. And how many more people got it? I never got it. I never got COVID. Crazy. I was around people with COVID on many occasions. One time I shared meals, shared hotel rooms. Yeah. Probably dumb question. Why not just eat less and do so much cardio? You don't want it because if you're not eating much, you're hungry all the time and your body doesn't have the nutrients it needs. I would always rather eat a little bit more. I didn't hate cardio the way some people really hate cardio. If that's the case, if you really hate cardio, you can make the diet do more of the work for you and do less cardio. I prefer to eat more. I felt better physically. I felt my muscles stayed fuller. I kept more muscle mass. Even on PEDs, I felt like if I didn't eat enough, I would start to lose muscle mass. It is a personal choice, but most bodybuilders will choose to eat a little bit more and do more cardio rather than eat less and do less cardio. Ideally, everybody would love to just eat as much as you want and do no cardio, but very few people are going to get lean doing that. Black Angel, Primo trend winch on Anavar good for cutting cycle? Circle, you mean cycle, yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong. There's no water retention on that cycle, so that's a good cutting cycle. Saludos. Muchas gracias for being here. Did you ever meet Robbie Robinson? I've been around him. I don't think we've ever actually met, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I've seen him compete. I remember him doing the Pro Ironman a couple times when I was. I think he was in the first Olympia that I was at, '91, when Lee Haney won his 8th title, and Dorian was in it. I think Robbie was in it that year. Samir was in it. Rich Gaspar was in it. Labrada, Vince Taylor. Yeah, it was a great year, '91. Yeah, Robbie, nothing but respect. The guy's like, what, 80? He was like 80 years old or close to it now. Still shredded, still training hard. God bless the guy. Yeah, didn't know him that well. Well, looks like I've been talking for almost an hour and a half now. Good Lord. So I hope we covered the question. The original question was, did the old school bodybuilders really train harder? And I think if you compare the old school bodybuilding champions to today's champions, there's no difference as far as how hard they trained. I think if they train less now in terms of less volume, less frequency, it's probably because recovery is something that we're a lot more aware of now than people were back in the day. And as far as using more free weights back in the day, I think it's because they didn't have as many machine options. I think if they did, they would have incorporated more machines, because there are some great machines. So in general, bodybuilders don't train as hard today just because we have so many more people that identify as bodybuilders now than we did, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's become a lot more popular in activity. And we have a lot of people who just do it now for clout, for views, clicks, follows. A lot of people just go to the gym to create content for their social media. So they're not training that hard. They just want to show off or, get that ego boost, that validation from people. So those aren't the same as these top bodybuilders that I was showing you clips of, Hadi and Derek and Sean Clarita. These guys train very, very hard. Don't get it twisted. They train every bit as hard as the guys from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. I've seen all those guys. I've seen guys from the 80s and the 90s train. They trained hard, but I've seen these guys today too. They train every bit as hard. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, helps me out a little bit. If you're watching the replay of this and you weren't on the live chat, drop some comments. I love responding to every comment. Unless you call me names and make me sad, then I'll probably delete the comment. But Blue Magic, nothing can replace free weights. That's why we still have them. They're never going to be obsolete. Their barbells and dumbbells are going to be tools, especially, God forbid we ever have another pandemic and we're all locked up in our houses again. I think the pandemic taught a lot of us that you can still get great workouts with just a barbell set and maybe a couple sets of dumbbells and a bench. You can do just about anything with that. So yeah, that's it, guys. That was our discussion for today. I appreciate all of you joining me. Hope to see you on the next one of these I do. Follow me on Instagram at Ron Harris Muscle, and you'll know when we're going to do these. I announce them usually like 10 to 12 hours ahead of time. But if you turn on your notifications on your YouTube settings and on your phone, you'll know when we're going live too. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, wherever you are in this wide world of sports. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.